Hey guys, what is going on? Jurgen from ZurGrinoSports here, and today we are coming at you with the December 28th edition of our Raw review. Just before we get into the actual Raw review, I want to talk a little bit about Brody Lee, or Luke Harper, or his real name, John Huber. Obviously, if you haven't, heard about it yet, he passed away recently. And WWE did a little tribute to him at the beginning of the show with an image, like a rest in peace image thing, but they didn't end up doing any video package for him or like a 10 bell salute, which is typically a thing that they do. So I just wanted to talk about him for a little bit before we get into the actual Raw review. And then we'll get into things. Maybe WWE will do something on SmackDown in terms of a video package, and they're just giving AEW the go-ahead to kind of have like the first proper tribute. I don't really know. There were tributes throughout the night as well from the wrestlers to Brody Lee. But I thought that Brody Lee, or Luke Harper, however you want to view him as, primarily I view him as Luke Harper because I don't watch AEW. The last year I didn't watch wrestling, you guys know that, so I didn't watch AEW in their first year, and then I haven't watched AEW since I started watching again, so I haven't really been following what he did in AEW, but I know him as Luke Harper. He, to me, since I've started watching wrestling in like 2003, 2004, is one of the best big man wrestlers I've ever seen in my life. For a dude that big to be able to move like he does and to be able to put on matches like he does where he shows off how athletic he was, as well as giving off that menacing, hey, I'm going to fucking powerbomb you through the goddamn mat, look. I think it's incredible. He was a really good wrestler for me, underutilized in WWE, of course. I've mentioned that before. He was really good in ring for me. He was really good promo-wise for me, character-wise. He had really good facial expressions. He had everything that he needed to be a top big man wrestler. He had the look, and then he had the ability. But most of all, now obviously I'm just a random fan. I didn't know him personally. I never interacted with him personally. But from what I've seen in stuff like Up, Up, Down, Down, and in interviews and stuff, he was just an incredible human being, a great father, a great husband, and I think it's really a shame that the world lost somebody like him, of his character, at such a young age. It broke my heart, man. It broke my heart. I cried for a fucking good long while, man. I don't really cry often, but yeah, he's a father, man, and it's a shame. It's really a shame that he died. So rest in peace, Brody Lee. If you guys want to share some of your fondest memories of him in the comments, please feel free to do so. There is, if you want to check my Twitter, not to plug it, but somebody made a thread of good matches of his to check out, and I retweeted it. So if you want to just check my timeline, you can see that thread, and then you can go look at a bunch of his matches that were really, really good and showed just how talented he was. So, yeah, man, rest in peace, Brody Lee. He will be greatly missed. And yeah, man. Okay, let's try and get into the Raw review now. I guess I probably should have done that at the end, so there's not this like somber feeling going into the review. But I don't know. I wanted to do it at the beginning just to kind of get it out there. Overall, Raw today I thought was good. Last week I thought it was shit. I was trying to be nice in my review. Last week when I said it was okay on like the upper limits of shit and lower limits of okay, it was shit. It was bad. I think I ended up giving it like a 4 out of 10. It wasn't good. This week was much better. It wasn't as good as SmackDown. I don't think the Christmas edition of SmackDown, it wasn't as good as that, but it was still a good show. We started things off with obviously the Brody Lee tribute image. Once again, they didn't do a video package or a 10-bell salute, which was kind of disappointing. I was expecting them to do something. Like I said, also, maybe they're trying to give AEW like the go-ahead to do it first, and then they'll do it on SmackDown or something. But if that's not the case, then I think that's disappointing. I think they should have done a video package for him. Yeah, we started off the proper part of the show with a Drew promo. Drew dropped a nice tribute to Brody Lee by saying it's Monday, you know what that means, at the start of his promo. He recalls his year and highs and lows, beating Brock for the title, then losing the title, then winning it back, and he thanks his fans for all his support. He hypes up Legends Night, where he'll defend his title against either Sheamus or Keith Lee. Sheamus music hits. He's like, oh, say their name and they show up. Sheamus comes up. Sheamus and Drew go back and forth a bit, saying, they've been dreaming of this match, him and those two together for the world title for 15 years since they started. They started together. It's going to be a great match. It's going to be physical. Drew's worried about how uncomfortable people are going to get because it's going to be really snug and physical. Keith Lee comes out after Sheamus says he's going to run through Keith Lee tonight to get to that match. Lee says something about Drew being proud of his teammate for what he did last week, his friend, which Drew says isn't true. And he also says, Drew, you vouched for him. You said, trust me, and I trusted you. And then, I got attacked. So your word means nothing to me now, kind of thing. There's no trust anymore. And then Sheamus says, Keith again says, that Sheamus is going to turn on Drew. Sheamus interrupts and says, you know why you got attacked last week, Keith? It's because you keep running your mouth saying I'm going to turn on my friend. Drew, kind of calms them down a bit. He's like, you know what? You guys are both revved up. Let's get a ref out here. Let's have that match right now. And regardless of who it is, Sheamus, if it's you, doesn't matter. Keith, if it's you, it doesn't matter. The result's going to be the same. Drew McIntyre and still WWE champion. Keith is about to say something to Drew and gets bro kicked by Sheamus, not once but twice. And then they go to commercial. They come back and have Keith versus Sheamus. Drew was on commentary. Keith Lee won the match, and it was a really good match, I think. It was nice hard hitting match. Usually when you have two bigger guys in there, you want the action to be nice and compact and really, impactful. And I think they did a good job of that. Keith Lee winning is interesting. I'm not really sure where they're going to go with it. I have a couple ideas. I had an idea for them to kind of do Sheamus winning now, and then Drew retaining clean next week, and then have Keith Lee earn a shot somehow for the Rumble pay-per-view where Sheamus screws over Keith Lee and he says, if I can't beat you for that title, Drew, nobody can. And then you can set up a triple threat between them at Elimination Chamber or Fastlane or whatever the fuck that the last pay-per-view is before Mania. And then if they wanted Sheamus versus Drew singles, then you could lead in off the triple threat to that. But obviously they had Keith win, so maybe Sheamus gets involved next week and screws Keith over. And then they do a triple threat at Rumble or something. I don't really know what they'll do. They have a lot of options. They'll figure something out. Whether it's good or not, that'll be up for debate. Yeah, man, I think that it was a good match to start off the show. Nice, good, compact match. Keith goes to commentary and has a face-off with Drew at the end. I will say this about Keith Lee. I want to be on board with Keith Lee, but there's something missing for me. He's good in the ring, and I like that. But being good in the ring isn't good enough anymore in 2020, nearly 2021, because everybody's good in the ring these days because the main companies are filled with indie guys. You know what I mean? So, and then the indie guys are good in the ring. The in-ring quality of wrestling these days is so high that being really good in the ring isn't enough on its own. And I can't his character and his promos and stuff don't really click with me. And I want to like Keith Lee and I want to care, but there's just something missing. So like when he won, I'm sure a lot of people were like, yes, Keith Lee, he's in the main event again. The rumors of him being sent to the PC and being de-pushed and getting dropped and shit like that, or whatever, he's going to have this big run. And for me, it's just, okay, Keith Lee has, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's just something missing with me, and I hope that it clicks eventually, because he seems like a good guy. He's good in the ring. He's talented. It's just something's missing character-wise for me to really connect with Keith Lee as an overall act on the show. You know what I mean? But, you know, it was still a good match. They had a really good match. I do like Keith Lee. It's just there's something missing for me to be fully on board with him as a main event guy. I don't know how to explain it, really. Then again, Sheamus isn't really a main event guy for me either. I think, though, that a good, well-told story can elevate a mid-card guy to be a main event guy for the purpose of that story. If you look at the Jey Uso and Roman Reigns stuff, Jey Uso was a tag team wrestler his whole life, and then he got 2 WWE title matches back to back. You know what I mean? If you told somebody that 5 years ago, they'd be like, what the fuck are you on? You know? And then you fast forward, they're telling this beautiful story, and you're like, yeah, it makes sense. And then the matches were done so well that you're like, holy shit, are they actually going to pull the trigger and have Jey win? You know what I mean? Like, so I think a proper story can elevate somebody. But for me, Sheamus is that upper mid-card guy who's just there to have solid matches. And then Keith Lee is just missing that little thing for me to be that main event guy. So, yeah, overall, though, it was a good way to start the show. Really good match. I really enjoyed the match. They keep building on the friendship with Drew and Sheamus, so that's going well, all that shit. So, yeah, we'll see where that goes. But it's a good start to the match. I just thought I'd give my overall opinion on those, just kind of so I could get it out there. They had a Elias backstage segment where he was playing guitar. What's his name? Gunner. The racist guy. Jackson Riker. That's his name. Figured it out. Okay. He was just vibing. He was just chilling. Somebody knocks on the door. Elias is like, don't worry about that. Just focus on the music. Then we cut to the ring for Miz with Morrison in his corner versus Gran Metalik with Lindsay in his corner. There's a Lindsay backstage promo played on the Titantron while the entrances are going to hype up the match. What I'd like to focus on in this match quickly is how easy it is to forget how good somebody is when they're not featured on your show. Gran Metalik was fucking impressive with his offense. You know what I mean? The Lucha guys just usually are, because they have really aesthetically pleasing offense with the flips and the constant, you know, the quick pace of it and all that shit. But like, you forget about that when somebody's not on the show and they're just there as cannon fodder for the 24/7 segments or whatever. Like, just as a tangent to this, Akira Tozawa is just a chaser in the 24/7 division, because that's pretty much what it is, the jobber division. Akira Tozawa. Go back to the Cruiserweight Classic. Akira Tozawa is having good matches, man. Akira Tozawa can wrestle. He's a good wrestler. You know what I mean? Same with Gran Metalik. You know what I mean? So, I thought he had an impressive showing offensively. They had Miz get some offense and say, I'm Money in the Bank, I'm Money in the Bank. Put a chin lock, I think it was, on Metalik. And he was asking Metalik with the chin lock in place, who's Money in the Bank, who's Money in the Bank? However, Metalik ends up winning the match, and Miz is just shocked. Like, he's like, just like, he looks like he just fucking like lost his ball sack or something. You know what I mean? He's just like, what the fuck just happened? Like, he's just in shock and horror that he lost that match, because the whole story going into it was his head was in another place because he was trying to get the Money in the Bank back, and he was kind of like not focused on the match. So the match itself was too short to be anything too great as a match. like I said, Metalik had some good offense that really showed off his strengths. And the match got over. It served the purpose that it was meant to serve. It served the purpose of Miz being distraught, so much so that he could lose to somebody so far down the card in comparison to him. So in some regards, maybe this is damaging to Miz, but I think it was okay. I'm fine with it. I like it for what it was intended to achieve and what it did end up achieving, in my opinion. So yeah, we had Metalik winning that match. Then we cut backstage again with Elias playing music again. Then the knocking on the door is just constant. They open the door. Omos comes in with AJ. AJ's like, yo, Omos is trying to listen to some Mozart and shit, and I'm trying to talk to management to get my fucking, championship opportunity back. I don't know if you watched TLC, brother, but, I was kind of screwed, brother. You know what I mean? Listen, hey, man, listen, you're not Johnny Cash. You're Johnny Trash, brother. You know what I'm saying? Elias rebuttals. I didn't really care what Elias said. I don't really care about Elias in general. In 2020, almost 2021, you know what I mean? But then they basically set up AJ and Elias for later in the night, which was the purpose of those backstage segments, which is kind of a weird match to do, heel versus heel. AJ at the top of the card, Elias lower mid card right now, at least in my eyes. So kind of a weird match, but it ended up going fine, and we'll get there in a second. But then we had Dana with Mandy in her corner against Shayna. Dana Brooke's kind of decent at the wrestling now, isn't she? In her early days in 2015 and stuff, man, I was not a fan of Dana Brooke. I was like, man, she can't wrestle, because in my opinion, she wasn't good back then, and she didn't have good character work back then either. So I was just not a big fan of her. But she kind of held her own against Shayna today. I think she had a pretty impressive performance. The match itself was okay. Once again, not really long enough to be anything special. It's a TV match, and typically they don't go that long, especially when there's not really much on the line and you don't have big names involved. Even though Shayna is a big name to the hardcore fans, but to the casual fans, she's not really that high up on the card, right? So, but yeah, Dana had a chance to shine. She had some pretty impressive. She had a pretty impressive performance for me. So she's kind of low-key making a fan out of me, you know what I mean? I was one of the people who was like, oh, why is she on the main roster? She should be in NXT. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, no, she's a good part of that roster. So she impressed me today. There was this weird spot that I wasn't really necessary, where Shayna got her submission in, which I still have not learned the name of because I'm dumb. With her being on the outside and Dana being through the ropes, and then she dragged her out, left her on the floor after she was passed out, and went in the ring. The count was at 8, and you're like, okay, so she's gonna get a smart count out win. That's fine, cool. It makes sense. She's a methodical, tactical person. If she can choke somebody out and leave them down for an easy win, she's gonna take it, you know what I mean? So it fit with her character. But then she came out to attack Mandy, which almost backfired, almost gave Dana the opportunity to win the match, but then Shayna ends up winning anyways. Mandy's checking on Dana after the match. Shayna comes back, attacks Mandy, puts the clutch in on her, and and then gets some heat after the match, after she won the match. So I think they're trying to repair some of the damage they did to Shayna a bit, and there was another hint towards that later on, when we'll get to that eventually, where I think they're trying to build her up, maybe to be Asuka's next title challenger, or maybe to do something big in the Rumble, or just do something big coming up, you know what I mean? Because they made her look really strong tonight. So the match served its purpose. I thought it was fine. It wasn't a bad match. It just wasn't long enough to be anything special. So once again, we're off to a good start, which is nice. It's a nice palate cleanser after last week, which was just really shit. Then we had the Alexa's Playground segment. She's talking about when the Fiend's going to come back. Maybe he'll come back this week when Randy's in the playground and he wants an audience. Maybe he'll come back next week so he can meet his hero Hulk Hogan. He's been taking his vitamins and saying his prayers, but not even I want to know who or what he prays to. And then she's like, Randy, come on down. Music plays, music cuts off. She's like, huh. Let's try it again. Come on down. Randy's music plays, stops, and he's like, oh, okay, he doesn't want to play with us anymore. Randy appears on the Firefly Funhouse. I have a problem with this. It's not necessarily part of this feud itself that the problem is rooted in, but it goes back to when Seth invaded the Firefly Funhouse. The Firefly Funhouse, for me, I think initially it was supposed to be kayfabe as well, wasn't a physical place you could go to. It was a mental corner of Bray Wyatt's mind, his twisted mind. You know what I mean? That's what I perceived it as. So it worked with the Firefly Funhouse match because that was like a fucking mindfuckery match at WrestleMania, so John Cena could go into it and be fine. But like with stuff like Seth invading and shit like that and Randy invading, I don't really like that, but you know, it's a minor grievance. It's kind of dead and buried that the Firefly Funhouse is like an actual physical place now, which I'm not a fan of, but just thought I'd mention, just so you know where I stand on that. Randy's like, oh, hey, here's Huskus the Pig, and kicks Huskus the Pig. He takes Mercy out of the box, throws her at Abigail, throws him at Abigail. I don't even know if the fucking puppets have identities. Rips off Ramblin' Rabbit's head, straightens the painting of the fucking building that he burned down, which I can't remember. The Wyatt compound, right? Was that the actual compound, that building that he burned down? I can't really remember. My brain is fried. Basically, Randy is talking about, through that segment, like, you keep saying the Fiend's going to come back. I don't think he is going to come back. But if he is going to come back, you're making it seem like this is where he's going to come back to. So I'm going to make sure that there's nothing for him to come back to. And then Alexa is like, wait, I challenge you tonight, later on in this ring. So they set up another segment with Alexa and Randy later on in the night. So that segment was good, I think. A lot of people on Twitter I've seen are not liking the Fiend and Randy segment. I really don't get where the discontent is for this feud because I'm enjoying it. It's a way that I think Bray is using to repackage the Fiend, because every time Bray gets ahead of steam with the Fiend, WWE is like, oh, you're popular again? Let's ruin you. And then he's back at like nothing. And then he's like, okay, well, I got to build myself again. And then he builds himself up to being really popular again. And then WWE is like, oh shit, you're popular again? Time to ruin you. You know what I mean? So he keeps having to reinvent himself. And this isn't even exclusive to the Fiend. This is just Bray in general. Bray is a brilliant fucking, mastermind of this business, in my opinion. And he keeps building these incredible characters and stories. And then WWE is like, oh, you're popular? Okay, so you're going to put over this person, even though you should not be involved with that person because your character's wants and desires and motivations do not conform to the others. So there's no reason for you two to be intermingled. You know what I mean? They just constantly do that. So I think this is a good way of Bray reinventing himself as the Fiend. And it makes sense that it's Randy because they have history with Randy. So I think that the feud itself is good. I liked the TLC finish with him being burned alive. Because it sets up the rebirth. I liked last week's segment. A lot of people thought Randy's promo was cringy. I didn't really think it was. I thought it was good. And then I like this playground segment this week, with the exception of him being in the Firefly Funhouse, but that's not specific to this segment or the feud. You know what I mean? So whatever. We had a Charlotte backstage interview where she was pretty much putting herself over. She was asked about New Year's resolutions, and she says it's the same every year, to get to the top and stay at the top, kind of thing. And then Asuka says that Naya's not ready for Charlotte or something like that. And then the backstage interview is done. I don't really care. Then we had AJ versus Elias. This match surprised me. This was like a pay-per-view length match, kind of. It was a multi-segment match. Elias impressed me in the ring. He did more than I really am used to him doing. But I still don't really care about Elias as a character. You know what I mean? Maybe him being like a mentor to somebody in Jackson Riker, despite it being Jackson Riker. I don't really like him being on TV. But you know what I mean? Maybe him being a mentor will change my mind and freshen Elias up for me to be like, okay, I'm on board with Elias now. Because Elias, in my opinion, in like 2016, was doing really good character work. The problem is when you do the same thing every week for 4 years, like, why do I care? So yeah, I don't really care about Elias too much as an act altogether, but he did well in the match, I think. I thought the match was good. It was a nice pay-per-view length match. It felt like it, at least. I didn't time it or anything, but it felt like a long match. It was nice back and forth. They put over AJ pretty big because Elias did some of his big moves. I think he hit his finisher and AJ kicked out kind of thing. So they're putting over that, you know, they're in different stratospheres. AJ's up here. Elias is kind of in the middle down here. But like Elias can hang. So they're trying to elevate Elias with the match with AJ. So I see what they were doing. They had a spot on the outside where AJ was thrown out. Jackson Riker was about to go pick him up or something and do something to him, even though it would have caused disqualification. So the start of the spot didn't really make sense. And then Omos comes up, causes Riker to be so afraid that he falls on his ass and backs away. Blah, 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 blah. But AJ ends up winning the match after Elias gets a good amount of offense in the match. So yeah, it was a decent match. It was a good match. AJ winning is good. I still am failing to care about Elias, but maybe if they stick to this mentorship role with him and Riker, maybe that'll kind of change my opinion on him. Let me know what you guys think about Elias, because I don't know if I'm in the popular opinion with not really caring about Elias anymore, or if I'm in the unpopular opinion. I know I'm in the unpopular opinion for Wyatt and Fiend. Those are the same people. Fiend and Bray. Those are the same people, Fiend and Randy. I know I'm in the unpopular, opinion for that, according to Twitter at least. But let me know what you guys think about Elias, because I'm kind of not really caring. But he did, in ring, he impressed me tonight. Then we had Ricochet versus Ali. They had a backstage pre-match promo play during the entrances from Ali, saying that Ricochet needs to change. He needs to stop thinking with his heart and start thinking with his mind, and accept the, accept that Retribution are his allies and join them. They had a match where both Ali and Ricochet looked pretty good. There was a moment where Mace and T-Bar pulled Ricochet down. You know what I mean? Just some regular old heel heat being garnered there. There was this segment where I'm trying to remember the timeline of the match. There was this segment, I think, where Ricochet did the kickback or something. I think the commentary team called it. The thing where he puts you on for a fireman's carry and then pushes you off like a GTS but does a Pele kick into it. You know what I mean? That thing. And then he goes for the cover 1, 2, and then Mace pulls Ali out of the ring, which should, with all intents and purposes, within the rules of wrestling, cause a disqualification, but whatever. And then him, Slapjack, and T-Bar get on the apron to kind of corner Ricochet. Ricochet goes, springboards off the corner, and does a tornado, like springboard DDT from in the corner outside the T-Bar. And he lands headfirst on the apron and then kind of just like free falls onto his head and neck on the outside. It was a nasty looking bump. Then he goes and gets some offense on Mace and on Slapjack before he gets in the ring. He goes for a shooting star press. Ali gets the knees up and then puts in the Koji clutch and gets the submission win after Ricochet passes out. I like that Ricochet did not tap out, because you keep Ricochet strong, and because after the match Ali gets on the mic, and then he tells, Ricochet to join, and he says, "What's your decision?" Ricochet says, "I have thought about the decision, and my decision is that I will," he takes a pause to tease that he's going to join and not join Retribution. Codebreaker gets out of the ring. Everybody, Mia Yim, whatever her Retribution name is, Reckoning or something, attends to Ali, and then the other three, rush the ropes to kind of like yell at him from in the ring kind of thing. I like that they didn't have him tap, because having him tap kind of plays into the imagery of him submitting to Retribution. And since they had him not submitting to Retribution in the post-match promo and had him rebelling still, it would have been a weird mismatch if he were to tap and then say, fuck you. But since he passed out and then he's like, fuck you, it kind of still fits, you know what I mean? So they're kind of righting their wrongs with Retribution, because Retribution are getting wins. They're keeping Ricochet looking somewhat strong because he doesn't tap and he's still resilient. Even though the numbers are against him, he's still fighting. So they're building up this resilient trait in Ricochet. So I think, although I'm not a big fan of Retribution and how they've been booked overall, and I'm not a fan of how they've been booking Ricochet overall, because I think he could be doing a lot more, I think they're starting to kind of stumble into something okay with the Ricochet and Retribution stuff. You know what I mean? So I think they're kind of stumbling into a way where Retribution isn't shit anymore. It's still not great. The match itself was good in ring wise. The whole night was good in ring pretty much. And I think character-wise and storyline-wise, they're stumbling into that kind of being okay with Retribution thing. So they're improving. It's still not great with Retribution, but they're improving in my opinion. We had a Naya backstage interview where she talks about Charlotte's interview, then gets asked about the 3 resolutions that asked about her New Year's resolution. She says, I've got some. Number 1, stop Charlotte's climb to the top. Number 2, get those tag titles back where they belong. And number 3, which Shayna didn't know there was a number 3 because she was numbering them off for her. Win the Rumble, eliminate every woman in there, and main event and go to Mania or whatever and win the title at Mania from whoever the champion is at the time. They walk off. Shayna walks back on camera and tells the interviewer, I kind of like that idea, which is why I think maybe they're teasing Shayna winning the Rumble. If it's not Bianca winning the Rumble, I'd love for it to be Shayna. Shayna should have won the Rumble last year instead of Charlotte. But Charlotte Flair, baby. But anyways, yeah, they have that going on. They have a Drew backstage interview where he promotes his title defense next week, and then they go into Charlotte versus Naya. Naya's working the arm a bit at the beginning, which, of course, she kayfabe wrote Charlotte off of TV by attacking the arm, so that makes sense. They have a spot where Charlotte puts in the figure 8. Shayna, before that, kind of gets involved a bit, and then Asuka kind of comes around, and then Shayna throws Asuka into the commentary table and behind the commentary table. Charlotte puts in the figure 8. Shayna gets in and puts the clutch onto Charlotte, causing the DQ. And then Asuka runs out Shayna and Naya after that, giving Charlotte the win by DQ. The match itself was as good as you'd expect a Nia Jax match to be. She doesn't really sell. She can't really keep up with a high pace to anything, which she shouldn't need to because she's the monster character, but she also can't really do that well. She can't really do anything that well. I really do not like Nia Jax. But she, I don't like the finish because there's no point to the DQ loss as opposed to the submission loss. Because if Naya was like women's champion, right, and the title was on the line, and she's about to tap, then hell yeah, have Shayna come in, choke out, Charlotte. Yeah, Naya loses the match, but she keeps the women's championship. That makes sense. With nothing on the line and you getting a loss either way, why put that DQ in? That really doesn't cause anything to happen other than keeping Nia strong, which you don't need to keep Nia strong. It's fucking Charlotte Flair. She's like final boss of the women's division within kayfabe. Because you've booked her down our throats for fucking 5 years. She's final boss. You don't need to protect people against her. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I don't know. Like, Charlotte gets the win. Charlotte should be getting the win, but she should have gotten a clean win, not the DQ win. Maybe they're just trying to milk a rematch out of it or something, which, like, fair enough. Sometimes you kind of have, sometimes when you're booking shit, you have an idea. Your idea covers like 4 weeks of booking, and you have to book 5 weeks of shit to get to your endpoint. And you're like, okay, well, just stretch this out over 2 weeks, have it like as a filler kind of thing, loosely, logically booked, and then blah, blah, blah. Sometimes you just kind of have to do that. But if that's not what they're doing, then I really don't understand what the point of that was. Just have Naya submit. She lost by pinfall to fucking Lana. She can submit to Charlotte. But yeah, probably the low point of the night for me is that finish, mainly because there wasn't really a low point anywhere else. So like, that's a good thing. They had a backstage Hurt Business meme where it was like an earlier today thing. They were showing up to the arena. They have a producer or backstage worker for WWE, production team guy or something, just chilling backstage. And they have so much room to walk around him, but they just walk straight and he's kind of in the way. And they're like, hey, can you get out the way? He's like, oh yeah, sure. And then he runs into like Shelton, and then he runs into Lashley and gets scared and falls on his ass. And then they're like, haha, thanks. So it's just putting over that they, they're a group that kind of bullies people. They had an Angel Garza backstage interview where he talks about how his 2020, just like everybody else, was full of ups and downs. He was talking about how he was swiping left and right and talking about love and shit. I think he mentioned how he met Charlie because he was asked to recap his first year in WWE. He said, a new year is full of new beginnings. Maybe next week I introduce myself to some of the legendary women in Legends Night, blah, 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 blah. The interviewer's like, okay, just because I'm here and I'm curious, who's this rose for? And he's like, oh, gentleman never reveals. And then the 24/7 crew, jobber crew kind of come by. Then you pan down. The rose was stepped on, trampled on, kind of broken in half at the stem. He's like, well, it's the thought that counts, and then hands it to the interviewer. So yeah, we had an Angel Garza backstage interview there. Then we had the New Day and Hardy Bros, as I will officially be calling them, versus Hurt Business in an 8-man tag. They had a backstage segment right before the match where New Day were talking about getting the tag titles back from Hurt Business, and Riddle was trying to figure out a 4-man tag team name for them, and he came up with one of them, which got a particular pop out of me, which was the positively, because power of positivity, hard, because Hardy, bros, because bro, positively hard bros. And then New Day were like, nah, and then their music played, and they're like, yeah, we gotta go, nah, that's cool. A lot of people don't like the comedic Riddle stuff. I like it for the most part. There are a couple jokes where I'm like, okay, that kind of fell flat. But like, for the most part, I'm liking comedic Riddle because I think they're just trying to bide their time before they're like, okay, we'll do Riddle versus Lashley. Because when they do Riddle versus Lashley, they'll probably have Riddle get really serious, because I feel like Riddle might be the guy that they want to take the title off of Lashley eventually, but they still want to keep the title on Lashley for now because Lashley and the Hurt Business in general are just doing some good work right now, and they're really over with what they're doing. So I feel like they're just kind of biding their time with Riddle, keeping him in the scene loosely, doing the comedy stuff, and then when they're ready to pull the trigger on Riddle to win that US title, which I think is what they'll eventually do, they're going to kind of, pull back on the, comedic stuff and then go full on in the other way with the seriousness. So, but that's just me speculating. I'm liking the comedic Riddle stuff. He gets a giggle out of me, every week pretty much. They had a pre-match promo during the entrances from Hurt Business where Lashley announced himself for the Rumble, meaning he announced himself for winning the World Championship at WrestleMania. in his own words. They had a cool spot with Lashley where they did one of those spots where all the heels kind of try and get involved and all the faces fend them off in a multi-person tag match to get like a rest spot kind of thing where the heels are on the outside and the faces are on the inside and they go to commercial. The cool spot with Lashley is they protected Lashley because each of the Hurt Business, they just kind of took one thing, like a drop kick from this person or a clothesline from this person, whatever. Lashley had to get hit by all four of the face team just to get sent over the rope with a clothesline from Jeff Hardy, which he landed on his feet on, and then immediately, instead of selling it as in like falling and then being hurt, he landed on his feet and then just pounded the barricade because he was pissed that they outnumbered him and got that little bit of advantage on him. Because I love intense fucking murder machine Lashley because he's so good at that. Walking Armageddon or Walking Apocalypse, whatever his nickname was in TNA, incredible, man. That's the Lashley we need, and that's the Lashley we've been getting with Hurt Business, which I really like. So him being so pissed that he lost one iota of momentum in the match to four people, for me, puts over like, okay, he's a machine and he's gonna accept nothing but perfection from himself. You know what I mean? So it's just a small thing that I just really liked because they put Lashley over, because they damaged Lashley a lot in his initial couple of years with the sisters thing against Sammy and then the Leo Rush stuff. Even though I love the Lashley thing as a meme, it was shit, let's be honest. So yeah, they're doing a good job of repairing Bobby Lashley right now. Then they had that typical multi-man tag match clusterfuck of moves where everybody comes in and gets to do a move on somebody and whatever, and that led to Lashley lining up a spear on Jeff Hardy. Jeff intercepted the spear. Jeff tries for the Twist of Fate, which Lashley, I think, countered into the Hurt Lock, which Jeff Hardy taps out to. I think Jeff tapped to the Hurt Lock last week as well. But again, Jeff loses the least out of anybody on that side from losing. New Day, they don't really need to be in the tag team picture, but you don't have any other tag teams on Raw, so they kind of need to be in the tag team picture. So you need to keep them looking kind of strong so they can go against Cedric and Shelton. So they can't take the fall. Riddle, I think they're, again, saving so he can be a serious threat to Lashley when they're ready to pull the trigger on the title change. And then Jeff is a solidified legend. He doesn't need to be booked strong in 2020, 2021. Like, he's near the end of his career, probably. You know, it's good for him to give back and put other people over. So at this stage of his career, right? So he's the one who loses the least from a loss on that team, so it makes sense that he takes the fall. They're protecting Lashley again. They're building Lashley again, which I like. So they're keeping Lashley strong, and they're not taking needless momentum away from Riddle, which I really like. And then after the match, they tried to do a post-match beatdown. New Day kind of get away. And Riddle, the first little tease of Riddle versus Lashley, well, not the first tease, because they had the Bro Nuts segment from a while ago. But, you know, the tease for Riddle versus Lashley is Riddle hits him with his knee, his little, like, jump switch knee thing, and then leaves the ring as kind of like a hit and run, as the commentary explained it as. The 8-man tag itself, in terms of the match, was fantastic. I loved it. It was great. You had good people in there. You had I think Woods did a tribute to Brody Lee in the match. I think he did a couple of his moves. Tom Phillips was doing a lot of references to Brody Lee on commentary throughout the night, so I guess he must have been close with him. I think Woods had a Brody Lee like black armband around his arm. Typically, when somebody dies, you put the black armband around, right? So he did that for Brody Lee. So that was pretty cool. But the match itself, the wrestling was great. I really liked that match. And as the in-ring main event to the night, I thought it was pretty cool. Then they had a Miz and Morrison Morrison backstage segment where Miz is sulking on the stairs. Morrison's like, dude, you just got to get over it, man. I mean, like, even the best of people lose sometimes, blah, 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 blah. And then he's like, oh, yeah, well, was this person Mr. Money in the Bank? No, because I can't remember the actual person Morrison referenced. Then Adam Pearce comes by, and he's like, hey, here's the briefcase you wanted back. And Miz is like, oh, you're going to rub it in my face? And he's like, no, you were right. The rules clearly state that the holder is the only one to cash in, and that was not Morrison, so you are Mr. Money in the Bank again. Which was fine. I would like to just give myself a pat on the back for predicting that they use this loophole to get it back on him. If you go back to my TLC review, I'm like, hey, I think they'll do this, and they did do that. Look at that. I understand the wrestling. No, but that segment was fine. What I hope they do now is AJ next week goes up to Miz and he's like, hey, Miz, I see you got your Money in the Bank, back. I didn't get a world title match back. I think you owe me a chance for the championship. So I think you owe me a match for that Money in the Bank since you cost me my title match at TLC. And then they'll put it on AJ so they have somebody believable as the Money in the Bank, because Miz, as much as I love Miz, he is not a believable main eventer in 2021. Okay, he's not. He's just not, especially after a loss to Grand Metalik. Yeah, so that segment was fine until they started celebrating him getting the Money in the Bank back. And at the beginning, it's like, oh, it's over the top heel stuff. Yeah, this is whatever. And then it went on too long for me, and it just became cringy. And I was just like, ooh, can you just cut away, please? So that was unfortunate. And then we main evented with Alexa's challenge to Randy, which nobody really knew what was going on. Was it going to be a match? What was it going to be? Alexa makes her entrance first. Randy gets in the ring after his entrance. He's like, okay, I'm here. Where is he? Where is he? Where is he? Alexa's like, it's not about him. It's about me. Alexa's really emotional throughout the whole thing. She's like on the verge of tears kind of thing, which gave me the vibe of she just really wants to be reunited with the Fiend, because she, in her promos, is like, okay, Fiend's coming back. You know what I mean? Maybe he's coming back, and if he does, it's going to be shit for you. And then I think now the thing with her in this segment was, I don't know if he's coming back, so if he's not coming back, I want to go to where he is kind of thing, which gets put across in the other part of the segment, which we'll get to. And after she says it's about her, she leaves the ring, grabs a present from ringside, puts it in the ring, opens it up, and takes out a gas canister and matches, placing them at the feet of Randy Orton. And then she challenges Randy to do what he did to Fiend to her, and then she lays down in the middle of the ring. Randy doesn't do anything. She gets up, she pours the oil in a spot in the middle of the ring, pours the trail to Randy's feet, places it down, and hey, I did all the work for you. You just got to light the match. And then she lies down again, I think, and then she gets mad when he doesn't do it. And she like I said, she was emotional for the whole segment. She says that Randy doesn't have the guts to do it, calls him nothing but a little bitch, and then pours the gasoline on herself. Before this, she would have poured a circle around the spot in the ring, you know what I mean, around her, and then she poured it all over herself. Obviously, it would have been water in the canister. It's not gasoline, I don't think. I'd imagine it's not gasoline, and it looked very clear, so I think it was probably just water in there, but, within kayfabe, kayfabe, brother, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And then pours the gasoline on herself, and she's just standing there. Randy says that, you think I won't do it. You think I'm not capable of doing it, but I want to do it. I'm not doing it because you want me to do it, so I'm trying to, contemplate. I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. I'm trying to process this, because believe me, I will do it and I'll enjoy doing it, but you don't want me to do it, so I'm not going to do it. And he's like, you know what? You want me to do it so bad? Fine, I'll do it. And then the lights go down Fiend style, and then it's dark, and then he lights the match. He has the match burning in front of his face. Commentator's like, wait, Randy, don't do it. Randy, don't do it. And then fade to black, and the show's done. So they ended it on a cliffhanger. I feel like the timing on the cliffhanger was a little bit weird, at least on my feed in Canada. I don't know what it was like in the US or anywhere else, but the feed that I got in Canada on Sportsnet, was he has the thing, and then it goes to black, and you can hear kind of half of the Fiend's sound of like the shit shutting down, and then the sound itself gets cut off. I don't know if that was intentional or if it was supposed to be sound black, silence for a bit and then cut off, or if it was meant to be halfway through the Fiend's sound. I don't know. So yeah, but I do like the fact that Alexa did the whole burn me too. I love that. I like Randy being sadistic enough to be like, you think I won't do it, bitch? I'll do it. I just don't want to do it because you want me to do it. But you know what? Fuck it. If you want it that bad, I'll burn you alive. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck about no jail. I don't give a fuck about no murder charges. I don't give a fuck about nothing. I'll burn you alive. You know what I mean? So they're putting over Randy as being sadistic, which I like. They're putting over Alexa as really being one with the Fiend, which I like. And they're finding a innovative, nice, cool, interesting way to advance the Fiend-Randy feud without Fiend or Bray even needing to be there. So they're taking away Bray from us for a little bit. It depends on how long they keep him away, but they're taking away Bray as a whole and the Fiend as a whole, so that way we kind of maybe subconsciously forget about him, or maybe we want him back. You know what I mean? I'll compare this to something that I heard Bubba Ray say. I don't know if I saw it in a transcript or if I listened to it on like an interview or something. But he was talking about how one of the most effective ways to get heel heat is to recognize what the fans want and to take it away from them. Oh, this guy has a high-flying move. Fucking break his leg. They're going to hate you because now they can't see the dude do the fucking flippy shit that they like. You know what I mean? Just really simple. So if you take something away that people like, they're going to want it back, and then it's going to build hype for it, obviously. That's just logic. That's just basic common sense. But then also, maybe we'll kind of forget about Fiend a little bit, even though they keep referencing him. Subconsciously, we'll forget like, oh, okay, blah, 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 blah. And then they'll bring him back and he's going to look different and we're going to be like, holy shit. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I like that. Overall, I think Raw was good. I think maybe like a 7 or an 8 out of 10. It's tough with Raw because around the second hour was when Naya and Charlotte was starting. And around when Naya and Charlotte was starting, I was like, okay, how long left do I have in the show? And then I checked my phone, checked the time. And I'm like, okay, an hour left. I don't think it's a good thing when you have to check the time to see how much left is in the show before it's done. So I think it dragged on a little bit just as a, result of the show being 3 hours. That's not anything to do with the booking. It's just like the booking was good for the most part. There were some blips and blobs here and there that I didn't like I mentioned, like certain finishes and stuff like that. But, the booking was fine. The in-ring action was great. It was a really easy Raw to watch comparatively to last week. Last week, I felt like I was 5 hours in after 45 minutes. This week, 2 hours in, I checked my the time for the first time. Last time I was checking my time like 45 minutes in, 50 minutes in, an hour and 10 minutes in. Like I was just like checking all the time. I'm like, really? Only this week I just checked my phone once to see how much longer was left, because after that lull going into the end of the second hour and beginning of the third hour, it kind of picked up again, and then I just completely forgot about the time again. It kind of lulled a little bit. And is it coincidence that it coincided with Nia Jax? I don't really think so. I think she's just a fucking black hole of just enjoyment in the wrestling industry, but that might just be me. And I think maybe a little bit of Elias, but then again, him and AJ had a good match, so that's not really fair for me to say. There was just a bit of a lull at the beginning of the third hour, end of the second hour, but other than that, it was a really strong show, which I'm happy with. Like I said, not as good as SmackDown, so it's not in that like 9 out of 10 that I think I gave SmackDown's Christmas edition, but it was it was a good show. I'll give it between a 7 and an 8 out of 10. I think upper limit 8 out of 10. I think lower limit 7 out of 10. Maybe maybe 7's a little bit too low, maybe 7.5 to 8 out of 10, you know what I mean, in that range. I enjoyed it. I thought it was good overall. Like I said, the Naya Charlotte finish was weird. I didn't like the fake out count out spot with the Shayna match. I don't really like Elias. I don't like the Jackson Rikers on TV, but I think that the mentorship thing has potential to change my mind about Elias. I want to care more about Keith Lee than I do, but something's missing. Those are the only like downsides, and that's not even downsides because a lot of people are on board with Keith Lee, so that's just a personal thing to me. So that doesn't even really count. But overall, yeah, good show. Like I said though at the beginning, I wish they would have done some sort of video package for Brody Lee, but they didn't. Maybe they'll do it on SmackDown. Maybe they're trying to give first go to AEW to do like the proper tribute, and then they'll, you know what I mean? But I don't know. We'll have to wait and see what they do on SmackDown for that. But overall, like I said, solid 7 out of 5 to 8 out of 10 for me for this week's Raw. Really big improvement over last week's Raw, which I gave a 4 out of 10, which was really, really not good. So it's nice to see that. What remains to be seen is whether or not this is them being like, hey, it's the New Year's show. Let's go all out so we can give people a reason to be like, you know what? I won't give up on them this year. I'll keep watching, and then we'll see if the quality peters out and then goes back to being shit, or if maybe this is kind of a new beginning for them and they're going to kind of try and actually book a proper show from now on. So we'll have to wait and see what goes on with that. But like I said many times, because I repeat myself because I'm very awkward when I'm speaking, and I can't just say things once and then leave it be. I have to repeat them over and over again. Apologies for that. 7.5 to 8 out of 10 for me, in that range. Really liked it. Improvement over last week. Let me know what you guys thought down in the comments below. Did you guys enjoy the show? Did you guys not enjoy the show? Do you agree or disagree with me on certain topics? Please let me know down in the comments. If you want to go check out some of the gameplay shit that I do on the channel, I got a bunch of gameplay wrestling game series, so you can check out links to them at the end cards at the end of the video, as well as just on my channel page under the playlist section. Follow me on Twitter, link in the description. Please sponsor me, Peace Tea, of course. Be sure to turn on notifications so you never miss an episode, because YouTube likes to zuck your boy and not put my videos in your sub boxes. So by pressing the nice old bell icon, you'll get a push notification anytime I do upload, and you'll never have to miss it. This is a long-ass video. We're at 56 minutes. Wow. Okay. Didn't mean to go that long, but I guess I went a little bit more in depth than I have in the last weeks. Let me know also down in the comments if you're still watching. Would you guys like me to go with a more condensed, quicker review like I did on last week's Raw and on the SmackDown, where I just kind of gave my quick thoughts? Or would you like me to delve into my deeper thoughts about people like I did about Keith Lee, like I did about Elias, like I did about, oh, hey, I thought they were going to go this way with Drew and Sheamus, but they went this way. Would you like me to go more in depth like I did in this episode and have a longer review, or would you like me to keep it more condensed and have a shorter review? Let me know down in the comments. But yeah, man, if you guys enjoyed the video, please leave a like, subscribe, share it to all your friends, comment down below, all that good shit, and I'll see you guys next time.